Oh look, tuna, shrimp, and salmon flavored. My favorite. Yes, hello there. Are you done being mad at me? Are you done being mad at me? Excuse me. I'm giving you treats. Stop being mad at me. I had to go to work. You and your brother aren't pulling in enough money on the streets these days. Somebody has to pay the bills around here. Maybe if you dressed it up and gave it an effort, you'd be able to pay your way. But no, somebody's got to support your catnip habit. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Sarah and I make videos about health and fitness and all of those things, endurance sports. So if that's something that you're into, you know where the buttons are. This isn't your first YouTube video. If it is, I'm really sorry. Please don't leave. It gets better, I promise. You could hit the buttons and find out. Down there. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you. But today's video, I wanted to close the loop on my experience with coronavirus over the past 2 weeks. Many of you watched my first two videos, and I very much appreciate, yet again, all of the well wishes and positive comments I have received over the past couple of weeks. I have very much appreciated it, and I can't understate how helpful it has really been to kind of keep a positive mindset amidst kind of dealing with the fuckery that I've had to deal with over the past 2 weeks here. So I do want to give everybody an update. I've had several people ask, both here and on Strava, for an update on what's going on. So I want to provide that here. Hopefully you guys are getting maybe some insight or satisfying some curiosity from these videos, maybe getting a little entertainment, if you will. And I'm enjoying being able to share it as well, just kind of very cathartic and leaving this in the past by documenting it and moving forward, right? So the best way I can describe my experience with COVID is, first and foremost, I want to be clear that I had a mild case of COVID-19. If you compare it to the general population who has been symptomatic, I certainly would qualify myself as mild. And for that, I am extremely fortunate and grateful. This is probably a function of being in a low-risk age group, being in good general health, being active, good nutrition, all of those things that help to support a healthy immune system. And maybe a sprinkling of good luck, right? I could have gotten one of those nastier variants. So I'm very fortunate to be here reporting that I've had a relatively mild case of COVID-19, but it has not been without its challenges. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. It's been tough physically, mentally. It's not fun, especially when you're an active and productive person and you're an athlete. You're being sidelined by a virus or an illness, and it's not fun for anybody, right? And the best way I can describe how I felt, even including today, is I just don't feel right. I feel off, and I know that's not very descriptive or helpful. But I think if you think back to a time that you've just not felt good, you'll probably really identify with this feeling. If I really think about this in a vacuum, and we remove ourselves from 2020/21 with the pandemic, and this was 2019, I would take these symptoms and it probably wouldn't change anything about my everyday life. I'd still go to work, I'd still be training, I'd be doing all those normal things, but with these symptoms as they are, I probably would have attributed to maybe overtraining or overreaching, maybe a lack of sleep, trying to get a little extra rest, maybe some naps, going to bed earlier, right? Trying to fix the behaviors that would be potential cause and effect. Maybe after a couple of weeks, I might have attributed to a nondescript virus, right? I mean, those also go around. Sometimes people just have weird symptoms. They don't feel well. It's not a cold, it's not a flu, it's not one of the big three out there. So, sometimes you don't feel 100%. And that's how I have felt through this entire affair. And the most prominent symptom has been fatigue, substantial fatigue. And I don't want to say that this was severe in that I wasn't bedridden. It wasn't like I was having a hard time getting out of bed. I mean, you could see I was continuing to try to ride my bike or walk or both each day. So I certainly had enough energy to function. I continued to work. I did so remotely. But it was just a general feeling of malaise. Like everything I did took no less than 50% more effort. And it was like being like a 6-year-old cell phone with like buggy ass software that hasn't been updated in years and a battery that doesn't hold a charge anymore, right? It was not working correctly. And I'd go to work and after an 8-hour day at work, like I'd just be drained as if it was my entire day. I'd feel the same after a work day, even partway through the work day, as I would typically feel after a work day, a training session, doing my normal life things. So I really just did not have any extra energy for anything that was not mission critical. Like I had to force myself a few times to, just get a ride in, knowing that I would feel better on the other side, getting the lymphatic system moving, getting those endorphins into the system, and it did work. But that was a big part of the reason I haven't made a video more frequently during this entire affair than I had. I wanted to make a video around day 7 and at the close of this, and every time I thought to even sit in front of the camera and talk and think of what to say and then edit it and post it, stuff that's just super easy, it just felt so overwhelming to me that I just could not take on the extra task. I couldn't bring myself to do it. And that went for a number of other things. I couldn't bring myself to engage with anything mentally that took effort, right? I could ride my bike and be pretty mindless and listen to music or go for a walk, but anything that really involved using my brain after what I needed to do for work, I couldn't bring myself to do it. And I hate feeling like that as a typically productive person, just feeling like you're so sapped of energy. I felt like I wanted to sleep more. You know, I took extra naps. I went to bed earlier. I started my work day later. All things that aren't a part of my routine. And on the note of routine, I would be willing to bet that maybe 25 to 35% of my lack of energy came from the fact that my routine was turned upside down by force, right? I'm in quarantine. I'm not allowed to leave the house. I'm, not going to work. I'm not driving. I'm not talking to people, right? So my normal routine and activity level has just right down in the basement. And in doing that, I did a video a couple months ago, and I think it's kind of relevant here. I think it was back in November sometime. I was talking about discipline versus motivation. And a lot of that relates to the way, we take action and our energy levels. Being an active person is habitual. Being a sedentary person is habitual. People who live what you would almost call standard first world lifestyles that are typically sedentary, whether they work a sedentary job or they're sedentary when they get home from an active job, or both, right? They're sedentary at work and at home. They say, well, they don't do more or they can't work out because they just don't have the energy. They're too tired from this, that, or the other thing, not realizing that if you kind of brute force your way through and start taking that action, it begets more energy. And after, a few days and a few weeks go by, all of a sudden, your energy is higher, and then you want to use that energy and take more action. And that just continues to become habitual and really appealing. And when you take that activity away, at least I believe in my case, that ended up sapping me of a good portion of energy. Certainly, the virus was taking a good portion of the energy away, and I did not want to force myself to do things necessarily to an extreme degree and then take that energy away from my immune system. So you have to kind of strike that balance. But I think that the way that I felt was exacerbated by the fact that I couldn't do my normal things. That was probably the most prevalent of the symptoms that I felt. And, I went back to work 2 days ago. Today's Tuesday, the 13th. I started work yesterday, Monday the 12th. And I think I proved that out because Sunday I was very fatigued, very tired, and I gave myself every opportunity to rest. I didn't do anything on the bike. I didn't really do much of anything other than, catch up on a few things, update some stuff on the computer, and do some reading and watching a little TV, right? Trying to be pretty lazy on Sunday, more or less, so I can go back to work on Monday feeling as energized as I could be. And going through Monday, being busy all day, getting back to work, socializing with people, getting things done that I couldn't do from home. Then I had to take Kitten to his checkup and get his vaccinations updated. Then I had to do some laundry, and I went to the store, and I stayed busy all the way up until 8 o'clock. And my energy was manageable. I felt more tired than normal, but I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel crappy like I was forcing myself to stay awake. So I think that was kind of proof of concept. The same thing goes for today. Like my energy has been, despite not having the best sleep, my energy has been certainly serviceable. Now, in terms of other symptoms, there was a few little things that I was probably a little hypersensitive about because you're monitoring during the course of COVID, making sure that, you're alerting the doctor in case anything of concern does pop up. So things that I probably wouldn't have noticed, but for the fact that I was, monitoring that, being a little bit more hypervigilant. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a hypochondriac, but you're watching. You want to make sure that things don't go sideways. And I think around day 4 and 5, for about 36 hours, I had some headaches, and they were very deep headaches, not like a typical tension headache that band around your head. This felt like it was coming from deep into my skull, and it was very persistent, and it was not really responding to typical analgesic treatments like Motrin or Advil. After about maybe 30 hours, I was able to get it to go away. It was not a debilitating headache, but it was just it was annoying, right? It was there, it's in your head, you can't really ignore it, it's right there. And I think some of that might have had to do with dehydration. You know, I don't hydrate well to begin with. I tend to be a little camel-like in general. And when you're sick, you don't really think to drink much for a lot of people. You don't just get extra thirsty in a lot of cases. So I was not as vigilant with trying to bring on board extra hydration, so that may have contributed to the headaches. Additionally, over days 5, 6, 7, I was feeling some muscle and joint pain. It wasn't like body aches, like there was no fever, no chills, none of that stuff, but it was actually very consistent and persistent. Kind of when I woke up in the middle of the night, I would feel it in my low back, or when I would kind of sit in a position for a long period of time, or even when I was riding the bike, I just had atypical joint pain. Like, listen, I'm not getting any younger. None of us are. But I don't typically deal with joint pain other than maybe a niggle here and there, or it might be on one side. But this was probably more inflammation, right? Just kind of seating in the joints. And it was very responsive to Advil. I would take maybe 400 to 600 milligrams of ibuprofen, and it would go away within an hour. So I think that was just kind of some inflammation. It's what the body's doing. Everything kind of goes a little haywire when there's a virus in the system. So that was certainly workable. It wasn't a big deal. Now, as I progressed through the course of the week, as I got to day, I think 7, 8, and 9, and obviously day 10, I started to introduce a little bit more strain when it came to my exercise or my workouts. And I was being less vigilant about staying in that zone 2. I was not, throttling my heart rate. I was riding more to breathing rate. I was letting my heart rate go higher, but I was not letting my breath rate get out of control. I was just trying to ride comfortably, so maybe more in a high aerobic sweet spot. It's very short periods of time, maybe in that threshold range, and a couple of short VO2 max efforts, low VO2 max here and there. It felt okay. Like, I didn't feel like my fitness had completely fallen apart. After those workouts, I definitely felt more tired than usual. Got the extra rest, obviously. But the legs were responsive. Like, it didn't feel like a complete train wreck on the bike. And each day I added a little bit more, and I felt a little bit more resilient. And then Friday came along. It's like, I think I need to kind of back off. I did a shorter ride, did kind of like a short, maybe sweet spot level effort. And you can kind of see, hopefully you can see this here. If not, I'll post on the screen. But here's where my heart rate variability bottomed out. And then it rebounded, dropped off a little bit, and then continued to climb and peak up here. And this is Thursday and Friday. And from a general energy standpoint, I didn't feel this, but I did feel that on the bike. I felt like I was getting stronger. However, on Friday, I was starting to feel tired, which was part of the reason that I kind of dipped down to shorter. Hey, it's time for a break. I can feel that I'm getting a little bit tired. And then Saturday, I bottomed out again. I mean, lower than I did to begin with. I was very tired on Saturday morning. And I think that that's a function of I think I pushed a little too hard. In the moment, it felt fine. I didn't feel like I was really taxing the system all that hard. But the body can only take the strain that it can take. And once you dig yourself into a hole, you don't feel it on day 1, day 2, day 3, right? You feel it day 4, 5, 6. And probably what happened is as I added a little bit more load, the body was becoming more responsive to it. And then I ran out of energy. There just wasn't anything there to draw from. The immune system said, nope, this is mine, bitch. And didn't give me anything else for anything that was not necessary for healing. Now, Saturday, this day, was the last day, so I was able to kind of leave, and it was a gorgeous, summer-like day, high 70s. I could not let this pass, so I got some extra rest in the morning, and then I went out for what was going to be a long, easy ride. I had no expectations. I just wanted to enjoy the sunshine and feel like a normal friggin' human being again. And I went out for a ride. It ended up being 50 miles. I was out for about 3.5 hours, and I definitely bit off more than I should have. I didn't feel stranded. I didn't break down terribly, but it was a windy day. I was in like a triangle loop, so I had a headwind for about 20 miles. Then I had an 8-mile crosswind, and then I had a tailwind on the way back. And you forget sometimes, because you get so used to it, how much extra energy it takes to ride outdoors, because you're stabilizing your whole body, you're balancing, right? You're using your upper body. And then if you're in a wind situation with headwind or crosswind, you're bracing for that. And that was sapping more and more energy. And by about an hour and a half in, I didn't have anything substantial to give. So I was able to kind of just drop it off, get home. Luckily, I had the tailwind on the way home, stayed in zone 1, let the wind take me home. I just enjoyed being outside, but there was just no strength there. And, just kind of a function of this, right? This is what happened. I felt every inch of that drop off in terms of HRV yet again. I don't regret going out. I probably should have done a shorter ride. After that ride, I felt really drained. In fact, I came upstairs and I was hacking up crap for 10 minutes. Just there was stuff in my lungs. It was 10 days of COVID gunk in my lungs. And while I never had a cough, it doesn't mean there's not junk in there. So it was just nasty mucus. I almost gagged myself several times. And it went away as quickly as it started. So clearly during that ride, I kind of worked up and stirred up some junk and had to get that loose, and it was gone, and good riddance, right? But I was drained after that ride. I was not in a good way. I fueled up. I started to feel a little bit more human. Went to bed, and that's when I woke up on Sunday and just decided that I was just going to be a complete waste case for the whole day, because I took a lot out of the system and I needed to go back to work on Monday and be a functional human being. I had to. For my sake, I had to just get out of this damn house and live like a normal person. So it's been interesting, right? I've endured some interesting symptoms and experiences. This is not meant to have anybody feel sorry for me. I had it easy, all things considered. Many of you have shared your stories or stories of loved ones that did not have it as easy as I did. And yes, it's hard because I'm an athlete and it's tough to deal with the fact that you're sick and we're stubborn. But some of you out there have, talked about your stories being far worse than mine. And at the risk of sounding contradictory, I want to be clear. Just because many of the cases that are out there are mild, my case included, being mild, does not mean you want to be cavalier about this virus. You don't want this. This sucked. This whole situation sucked. I'm going to have fatigue that lasts for I don't know how long. Hopefully not long, but it could be weeks. It could be months. I don't know. There are people in the comments on these videos talking about not being right 3 months later, not even having severe cases of this stuff. If you think about the flu, everybody loves to compare COVID to the flu, but it's a very good comparison when it comes to the lasting effects on the body. If you actually have the flu, not a cold where you're like, you call your boss, you tell him you have the flu. I'm talking about the flu. That thing kicks your ass. It kicks anybody's ass who has to deal with it. During the flu, and sometimes for weeks, if not months later, your energy is just completely sapped, and it just inexplicably does not come back in short order, right? COVID is the same way. This is doing the same thing to people. It's having lasting effects. You do not want to screw with this virus. You don't want it. Take every precaution that you can to avoid getting this. I'm not saying you need to lock yourself up and throw away the key. I get it. We all have jobs and we have to go back to work and do our thing. But, just things that you can in terms of prophylactic measures. I know we all hate wearing the masks. The masks suck. Wear them if you're in a public environment or if you can't socially distance. For your sake, people are spitting, puking, coughing all over the place. You don't want that shit in your mouth, right? You put the mask on. There's no stigma around it right now. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. All of those good tactics. Do everything that you can to avoid it. Try to limit the number of get-togethers that you're part of until we can kind of get that herd immunity going, because you don't want this. I guarantee you, I'm not happy to have gotten this. This is not going to be something that I just snap my fingers and is going away. It's been 2 weeks and I still kind of feel like junk. I'm about to get on my bike here shortly, and I don't know if it's going to be an absolute disaster. I really don't. I'm not going to be able to just jump back into training. It's going to take me several weeks just to get back to where I was from a fitness and endurance perspective than it was before this whole affair started. This stinks. And if you're watching my channel, you're probably a person who enjoys sport and fitness and being active. And when that gets taken away from you, it's awful. It's just a shitty feeling. It's frustrating. I'm doing everything I can to stay patient, not blame myself, not be too hard on myself. But it stinks. I'm telling you that it stinks. There's a lot of people who are saying, oh, it's not a big deal. I'm not talking about those who are leaving kind sentiments saying, no big deal, you got this, you'll get better. I understand the sentiment there. I'm talking about the people who are just like, whatever. It's a 99 point whatever % survival rate. It's not about survival. It's about quality of life. This sucks. It can have vascular involvement, pulmonary involvement. I had it easy and it still sucks. I'm not saying that so you feel bad for me. I'm saying that so that you understand that it stinks to have this virus. You don't want it. And I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not sitting here to preach to you, but I encourage all of you out there who are on the fence to consider the vaccine. Really look into it, look into the science, look at the different variants that are available of the vaccine from the different companies. Decide what's right for you and your family. Make a decision with your doctor. But I would highly consider pursuing the vaccine if you think it's right for you and your family. And this is just a pragmatic appraisal for me, right? I've got my chips here on the table. We're not anywhere close to herd immunity without the vaccine. It's been a year. With the lockdowns and the nonsense, we are not going to get there. We don't know how many people have had this disease. We could say, practically speaking, that maybe most people have had the disease, but considering the spikes, it doesn't look like we're anywhere near herd immunity, right? So I've got my chips on the table, and I got to bet black or red here. And I bet black. I'm betting on the virus. I don't know if I can get this thing again. There's reports that you can, that it's rare, and with the mutations, I could probably get this thing again in 6 months, 8 months, a year. Don't want it again. I've had it once. I don't want the stupid thing again. I even know if I know what to expect, I don't want to deal with this again. Or I can gamble on something that was engineered by people in good faith. And listen, the fact that we make everything into a friggin' partisan political issue and everybody's got to stick to their tribes and create some kind of narrative around something as simple as a health crisis is just friggin' ridiculous in my mind. I work in this industry, okay? I know some of the people who research in this field. They are not creating vaccines because they are beholden to any political person or party. They are doing this because the science sets their brain on fire. They love this stuff and they want to save the world. And you will never know their names. They will be the unsung heroes, and people will continue to vilify them because somebody said something on some news station or some pundit said this or that or the other thing, right? So I'm going to bet on that. And that's really what it comes down to, right? What are you going to bet on? Are you going to bet on a virus, or are you going to bet on something to promote health? There are certainly very reasonable skepticisms about a brand new vaccine that has not gone through the normal vetting process. I completely understand that. They're completely defensible. That's why you have to make the decision for yourself. But try to look at these things and consider these things through the lens of science, through the lens of common sense. Try to just block out all the political nonsense, the news nonsense, the propaganda on both sides of this debate, and make a decision that's right for you. But please consider it. Please, so if for no other reason, we get to herd immunity faster and we can get back to our lives. But consider it, because take it from somebody who's had to deal with even a mild case of COVID. You don't want it, okay? I'm being perfectly frank with you. It sucks. I'm a little frustrated that I've had to deal with it. I'm not going to cry over spilled milk. I'm a big girl. I'm going to go on with my life. It is what it is. Do whatever you can to be proactive. I know a lot of people are thinking, you know, if I get it, I get it. And sure, that seems very practical because you can't just be afraid of everything, but you can still find a middle ground. Do whatever you can do to avoid the virus. It sucks. That's my soapbox for the day. I hope all of you can stay clear of coronavirus. For those of you who have it as well, a couple of you have commented it, I wish you a very speedy recovery. Those of you who have already dealt with it and are still trying to get over the after effects, I hope that you guys kind of get over that soon. Those of you with loved ones who have dealt with this, I wish you and your loved ones all the very best. Please leave any comments, questions, concerns, if you have them, down below. Hit the thumbs up button because, you know, Teddy and Kitten, you know, they're not doing too well. They might need a little extra YouTube algorithm love these days to pay for their catnip habit. There's that. But thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.